Hello everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to be talking about Punnett squares. So the objective, which is taken exactly from the GCSE Biology specification, says that students should be able to complete a Punnett square diagram and extract and interpret information from genetic crosses and family trees. So let's dive into it. Let's imagine we have two parents, mom and dad, okay, and they both carry a genetic condition, but they themselves do not have the condition. So what's the probability that their kid is also going to end up with the condition? So this is what we are going to be using the Punnett squares for. So this is to give you the idea. Now let's get into the deeper details. Now let's talk about the basics. In the basics, we are going to be talking about some terms that are really important that you need to memorize as they can come as it is in your exam. So let's talk about first the genotype. Genotype is the what so genotype is the alleles an organism has, okay? An allele is actually the different version of a gene. So let's take an example of the genotype. We can say for blue eyes and brown eyes, since this is the example that is most commonly used. Okay, so the genotype for the brown eye is the capital B, while for the blue eye is a small b. Okay, so the alleles of this genotype is B, brown eyes, and small b, blue eyes. So you can see it's the different version of the gene. The gene is the eye color, okay? Now the alleles have there are different types of alleles. We have the dominant and recessive, okay? So the dominant allele is the one that is expressed when even only one copy is present. One copy of allele is present. So in the case of the brown eyes, we have B and B. Even though we have the allele for the blue eye color and we have the allele for the brown eye color, only the brown eye color is going to be expressed here because the B allele for the brown eye is dominant, while for the recessive is when we need two copies for the gene to be expressed, okay? And this gives us the example of the blue eye color. Someone with the blue eye color will have the genotype of small two small b's, which because only then the blue eye color is gonna be expressed in the kid or in the person. And this leads to the phenotype, which is the physical characteristic of a person, which means blue eye color or person having brown eye color. So you see, this is how the diagram is. First, you have the genotype, which is the gene of the eye color. And then here I give you the example of someone with the brown eye alleles, brown eye genotype, which is gonna be the either the B, capital B and small b, or capital both B's, okay? And then we have the alleles. Alleles is the different version of the same gene. For the person with the blue brown eyes and the genotype of capital B, small b, the alleles are gonna be capital B and small b. Then we have the dominant and recessive alleles, and then we have the phenotype. Now there's one more thing that we need to talk about, which is that the genotype, which is here, can have homozygous genotype or heterozygous. Okay, so this is also an important distinction that we need to keep in our mind. So homozygous means that there are same alleles, okay? So it will be like B for the brown eyes, or small b and B for the blue eyes, okay? So they both have the same alleles, okay? While the heterozygous means different alleles, which means B and capital B and a small b, which is obviously going to end up with a brown eyes person. So this you need to know about. So these are the terms. We have the genotype, genotype, which is homozygous or heterozygous, and the genotype is made up of two alleles, and alleles can be dominant and recessive, and this ends up in giving us a phenotype. So these are the basics that you need to establish and you need to memorize all along the way. Okay, so now let's get back to the example of the Punnett square. So now we're gonna be drawing a Punnett square of the same example. Okay, so let's say mom has brown eyes, okay, and she carries the allele for the blue eyes, B, okay, sorry. Brown eyes is her phenotype, and her genotype is B, okay, capital B and small b. And then dad has blue eyes, so it means his genotype is gonna be small b's, okay? Now let's make the Punnett square, which is gonna be really interesting since we will be finding out the probability of their kids ending up with either blue eyes or brown eyes. So here I'm gonna write the dads, okay, which is small b, and here mom, which is gonna be big B and a small b. Now we're gonna cross multiply and then we're gonna see what we get. So this is gonna be capital B small b. One child is gonna have capital B small b. Another probability of the child of having the eyes would be capital B small b. Another one would be B, and the fourth one would be B. So you see, now let's talk about genotype. So genotypically, the child is gonna be the probability of the next child having the blue eyes will be 25 will be 50%, will be 50%, okay, and or we can also write the brown eyes to blue eyes ratio could also be written as 2:2, since two blocks have the brown eyes while other two blocks have the blue eyes. Then it will be, we will divide them and it will be 1:1. Okay, so this is the genotype that we're gonna get. And phenotypically, we can say that 50% of the kids, 50%, there's a 50% probability. You're gonna write it exactly the same. There is 50% probability that next child will end up with blue eyes. Okay, so this is you're gonna write exactly, because if you write anything else, like if you do not mention probability or write chance, you're gonna lose your grade. Okay, so this is the most common example that everyone gives to, clear up your concept. Now let's talk about actual exam question. Okay, now let's go here and we're gonna be talking about that is taken from the actual, paper of the GCSE Biology. Huntington's disease is a genetic disorder. The genetic diagram shows the inheritance of this disorder. Okay, so the parent one has the capital H. So let's look at the box that they have given us, which is gonna be our index for what the alphabets mean. Okay, so here we have H. H means a normal allele, while capital H is the Huntington's allele. So let's see which one is dominant and which is recessive. Okay, so we have the capital H and small h with the, so both of the parents, one parent has capital H and small h, which is the heterozygous, right? Since they have different alleles, while the parent 2 has two small h, which is homozygous, because we have same alleles. So now let's look at the gametes, or the what the next child is going to end up having. So capital, anything with capital H is giving us the Huntington's disease, okay, while anything with the normal H, both of them homozygous, gives us the normal kid, okay, which means that the Huntington's disease is actually the capital H allele is the dominant allele, okay, this is dominant. So now we're gonna be solving this question. Huntington's disease is caused by capital H, as we just talked about right now. And the people with Huntington's disease can have the genotype HH, capital H and small h, or both capital H. They can never have both small h because this will be a normal child. All right. So now let's make the Punnett square of the two parents with the heterozygous for the Huntington's disease. So here we are talking about heterozygous, which means two different alleles. So the only combination we're going to have is capital H and small h for mom. Likewise, capital H and a small h for dad. Okay, now we're going to cross multiply and see what we get. So one gamete is going to have double capital H, another gamete is going to have capital H and small h. The third one is going to have capital H and small h, while the fourth one is going to have two small h. Okay, so now here, state the probability of a child of two parents heterozygous for Huntington's disease will have the disease. So here we can see we have, so now let's write it down, okay? Like let's break down everything and explain what we got as our gametes, okay? So we have the gametes that we got is four, right? And the different types, we have H, 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 okay, ratio, H, and a capital H and small h, which we got twice, so we're just gonna write it once, and then we have H and H, okay? This we got one square, right? This we got two squares, and this we got only one square, okay? So this is our genotype. And we can also say that, and since these both means the kid will have Huntington's disease, because as we said, it's a dominant, capital H is dominant, okay? So we are gonna say around 75%, okay? 75% probability that child will have the disease, okay? While there's only 25% probability that child will be normal. So students, at the end, you just need to understand, at the end you need to be able to write the genotype and phenotype. Okay, you should be able to identify the parental genotypes, determine the possible gametes that we just did now, and use the Punnett square to calculate genotype and phenotypic probabilities. So this is what we did right now, and yeah, and this is all for today.